Hey everybody, it's Undead Viking. Thank you for tuning in for another one of my video reviews. I'm back from Gen Con. Yeah, I realized Gen Con was a couple of weeks ago. Be on the lookout for a podcast coming up from me and Joel very shortly about our Gen Con experiences. If you're not familiar with our podcast, it is, for the time being called Wooden Cubes and Iron Soldiers. We are frantically trying to come up with a new name. We should have a new one. Well, maybe with this new podcast. We've been rolling a couple of ideas out there, and some people have been kind enough to email those to us as well. I went to Gen Con. First time I've ever been to the big, giant Gen Con. I was really excited about it. And I went there and I got to try out a lot of new games. I came home with a bunch of new games. Actually, I had to ship them home because I literally, I flew, so I probably picked up around 15, 16, 17 or so games while I was at Gen Con. And so I was pretty excited to get those back, and I've played a good number of them at this point, and I'm going to be trying to do some reviews of those brand new games that I got at Gen Con. And one of the first reviews, actually this one, obviously, I'm going to do is for this game, Seasons. Seasons is a game, Euro game, if you will, from Asmodee, or whatever. Good company. They've been coming out with games for quite a while, and they've got a bunch of brand new releases that they had at Essen that they flew in specifically. You can't readily pick this up right now, so I do apologize that I'm going to be showing you a game that you can't purchase. They did release at Gen Con, but I think you'll be able to get it at Essen or around the time of Essen. So, when Spiel in Essen takes place, then this will be released around the same time. So I'm going to show you a game you can't really pick up, but this is a game everybody's really, really excited about, and I think you should be too. I'm going to go over the gameplay because, well, that's what I do, and then I'm going to tell you exactly what I think about the game. Enough yak. Let's just go ahead and show you how you play. Okay, let's learn how to play Seasons. What you see here is pretty much the board. This is the main board that basically tracks what season you're in as far as the game goes, and also tells you, like, you can notice there's the little number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 all the way around. You play technically 3 years, and so this little marker just marks each year as you get through each one. And blue is winter, green is spring, yellow is summer, and red is fall. This is the scoring track where technically it's crystals. You start off, everybody starts at 0 points. If you get up to 100, you place another cube on the 100 or over on the 200, depending on how high your point total goes. I haven't had anybody score 200 points yet in a game, but feasibly, I guess, some of the card combinations and stuff like that could actually make that happen, I could guess. I'm going to quickly show you these. These are, each person will get one of these. You can notice they're in the 4 different player colors of gray, purple, green, and orange. They're all basically the same. They are, you'll notice there's these little indentations up here, and that's for when you will earn these little tokens representing the different mana. Like this would be a spring magic energy, and you'll place them like so up here to show, and you can have up to, obviously, this many of them. Neat, huh? Anyway, you'll notice that there's your cool little drawing here, and this guy's cool because he's got a little pumpkin head. That's why I picked him. And also you'll notice that there's this stuff right here, and there's this hole here. Okay, the hole is pretty simple. It's just when you pick a die, you'll place that die there. Ooh, look, this is the die I picked. Big deal, right? But up here, you can see there's 0, -5, -12, and -20. At any point on your turn or during the game, you can choose to take a negative hit to your points at the end of the game by slowly moving from 0 to -5, and then if you do it again to -12, and then if you do it again to -20, and to do one of these 4 actions. And I'm going to explain these actions to you real quickly, and they're not going to really have a lot of good frame for the rest of the game until I explain that to you, but just try to remember this. This action, you take any 2 of these tokens that you've earned, and you can turn them into anything else. So you could take like these 2 green guys, and you could turn them into a yellow and an orange, so to speak. Something like that. This one is a transmutation. You're able to turn those same tokens I was just showing you into the points or the crystals that you collect, and the +1 means that you get a +1 bonus when you do that for each mana token that you change. So that can be really good, because since the crystals are the points, maybe you'll be able to turn in more than 5, so it'll be more than willing. Well, you know, if you go to -5, it'll be actually worth it. The +1 here adds 1 to this row here. 1, 2. You can see the stars, and it starts off at 0. And you'll go all the way in the maximum of 15. This is important because this tells you how many cards you're allowed to have in front of you. You can see that giant deck of cards right over there. Eventually, you'll have a deck of those hand of those cards, and you'll be summoning those. And I'll show those cards to you in just a moment. And finally, this one, and probably in my opinion, one of the weaker things you can do, you're allowed to basically draw 2 power cards, choose one, and discard one. And sometimes if you can't get a card in your hand and you want to make some more points, or you want an extra power, that can be helpful. So each person has one of these, and they put it in front of them, and you know, they'll reference that during the game. It's kind of neat that this game, you know, is really cool, and it's a board game technically, but there really isn't a board. There's nothing out there except for this little circle and each one of these little player boards. But anyway, the game is really simple, and this is one of those games that as you play it, you'll realize that it's one of those that it's got a lot of layers to it, but the core mechanics of the game are very simple. At the beginning of the game, you take this giant deck of cards, you shuffle them up, and you deal each person 9 of these cards. So I'm just going to take 9 off the top, and you know, and not actually go through the shuffling and dealing out 4 sets of 9 cards. So 6, 7, one too many. So we have these 9 cards, and here's your cute little bunny on the front there. And cards come in one of two things. They either come as in this purple. This is an artifact. Let's see if I got. Yeah, there, I got 1 at least. And the orange, these are your familiars. And each card, and I'm not going to explain, there's tons of these cards, I'm not going to try to explain everything to you, but each card has a point total up here, and that's how many points they're worth to you at the end of the game if you have them summoned in front of you. They have a cost down here that it takes to summon the card, so in this card it would take 3 red tokens, or the fall tokens, so you'd have to earn 3 of these guys and turn them in to be able to use this to summon this air elemental up here. And then there's the little power that this thing has. And it says, all the energy tokens present in the reserves of all your opponents become air energy tokens. So like if you played this, everybody else who had stockpiled up different cards, if you so to speak, different energy tokens of different seasons, they'd all become red. So somebody who maybe was stockpiling a bunch of blue or green or what have you, in the idea of like, I'm going to use this for something big, they'd have their plans dashed, if you will. I should be noted that the game does say that there's a beginner version, and they tell you to use a specific number of the cards, and you can notice down here in the bottom you can see that 40 or 50. This would be considered an advanced card. So, you know, if you want to play an easier game, you use the lower numbered cards, and if you want to, play a more advanced game with a lot more screwage and a lot more direct influence over each other, you would play with the higher number cards. And then just to show you like an artifact card, here's the Amulet of Air. And so once again, 2 red, you get 6 for if it's in front of you, then increase your summoning gauge by 2. So if you summon this, you'd get to increase this gauge by 2. And which is always cool as well. I'm going to try to find one that has what's called a gear on it. There we go. Here's one. And some cards, they just have a one-time power when you summon them and put them in front of you. So unless you can somehow get the card back in your hand and then summon it again, that's the one-time use that it gives you. But cards like this will have a gear here, and this is the Potion of Knowledge. and it says sacrifice the potion of knowledge to gain 5 energy. So this is something that sits in front of you until you decide to use it. And then the 5 energy, of course, is the points. And so you can sacrifice that card and get it out in front of you, and so you can use that. And some cards actually don't cause you to lose the card itself. And you can go with this one, see the little gear here, place 1 energy token from your reserve on the Glutton Cauldron. And so this is one of those things, this is a cauldron that you can actually place these particular little doodads on there each time, on every one of your turns. And then if you notice on the bottom here, you can then, as another action, you can sacrifice the cauldron when it contains 7, and then you put these 7 energy tokens into your reserve, and then you gain 15 crystals. So I mean, it's things like that. Cards will, you know, have certain powers. So this is probably my favorite card in the game, just because of the picture alone. Here's your familiar. He's being sacrificed, and it says here you can discard or sacrifice one of your familiars to gain 4 energy. And this is a card that stays in front of you, and you can just constantly use your Necrotic Chris to kill off your familiars to gain more power. I just like that picture. Anyway, so how to play the game. After you get to your 9 cards, you dig through them, you pick the cards you want, say like, I want to keep this cauldron, and then you'll hand the rest of the cards face down to the player on your left, and then the person on your left hands you cards, you dig through and you pick one, and so on and so forth. Eventually you'll have a deck of 9 cards that you've picked, and then you'll have to create your deck. You do that by taking 3 cards you want right away. Then you take another 3 cards that you'll want in year 2, and you place them in front of you and put this little token with year 2 on them. And you'll take another the last 3 cards, and you put this token on them. Now, it should be noted that if you ever have cards that you aren't able to summon, and the game comes to the end, you actually lose 5 points per card that you have in your hand. So you kind of have to plot out the cards that you think you'll be able to use right away, and then, you know, plot out cards that, you know, you might be able to summon later on in the game. And it's also, you know, important to note, like, certain cards will be more valuable for you right away, and certain cards will be more valuable later, and things like that. And that's just something that will come from playing the game. After you have your hand of cards and you have the 3 cards you're going to start with, the first player, determine however you want, will take the dice that are designated for the particular season. So you start off in winter, and these are really big, cool, plastic, chunky dice. They're indented, so they're not going to, the white isn't going to wear off. They aren't painted on, so like they're nice indented dice. You know, they did a really, really good job with these, and they're really, really like big, thick, and clunky. I have big hands, and you know, I can palm a basketball, and look how big those dice are. I don't know, I really can't. I mean, I'm guessing they're a good inch across. But anyway, so these will be really loud, and I apologize for that. But you roll the dice, and then the first player then looks at these dice, and they decide which one they want to take. And then the next person chooses, and then they take one, and then the next person picks, and then so on and so forth until there's just one left. And don't, you know, re-roll the dice until there's one left, and that person, and then that is an important die, the one that's left, and I'll explain that in a moment. Now, it should be noted that this is if I've done it, if I've had a full complement of 4 players. If you have less than 4 players, you only roll as number of dice equal to the number of people playing plus 1. And so you'll randomly shake the dice up in your hand, and you'll just take the dice out that you're not going to roll. The reason why you just don't remove a die from the game is because the dice aren't exactly the same. They are different. So you have to make sure that you know, it's random which dice you're rolling for each turn. I usually play the game with 4 people, so I haven't really had to deal with that much, but that's what you do. Anyway, I'll explain what each one of these little sides means. So this particular like side of the die here, if you chose this and it's your turn, this means that you're going to get 2 water tokens, which, you know, you just get these, and then the star means that you get to increase your summoning gauge by 1, and these 2 dots on the bottom mean nothing because this isn't the last die, the die that was not taken. I'll explain that in a moment. Some of the other options here, when you see this big block like that, you just get a card. You draw a card, that's all. You can see like this particular one, it has the blue, you know, this is a fire, so you actually draw a yellow, and then you would get a star. And let me just show you, like this one, you can see this one there. That's actually a point. You get an energy crystal, and then you get to summon those 2 tokens. And let me just show you one last thing. And here you go, here's transmutation. And like you see, you get a feather, and there's a star. And also, the circle means that you could, if you wish, transmute tokens that you have. Now, when I say tokens, I mean the little cardboard circles, and turn those into points. Now, transmutation. Now, how many points do you get per token you transmute? Well, if you can see here, and once again, like I said, I hate zooming in on stuff, but I'm just going to zoom in real quick here so you can kind of maybe see this better. If you see on different levels of this like little spiral here, you'll see that there's 1 energy token, 2 energy tokens, 3 energy tokens. And you'll notice that here, if you were in winter, the energy tokens that would be worth 3 would be spring, because technically, like if you earned them in spring, because they're easier to get in spring, if you made it all the way to winter and you still had those tokens in front of you, they'd be worth 3 apiece. 2 apiece would be the summer here, which you maybe not have a lot of, but easier to have than spring. And then 1 would be winter and fall, because you had just gotten those. And you can see that changes. So like in the spring, it's like summer is what's worth 3, and in summer it's fall is worth 3, and in fall it's winter is worth 3. So you can see that's what transmutation does. And so, the only time you can ever do that is when you have a die that has a circle around it, this little circle, or like I said, you can use that particular ability for the cost of whatever it ends up being. So if you've already, like, say, transmuted 2, you'd move it to -12. So it costs you 7 points to do that. Or if the first time ever, it'd cost you 5. So that's that. So each person takes a turn, does everything. And it's important to note that when you take your turn, you are allowed to take your turn in any way you want. You can collect your tokens, you can then transmute your tokens, and then you can summon a card. You can summon a card, do what the card does, collect your tokens, and then you'll turn those in for energy crystals transmute. Whatever way you want to process your turn, you can do it in any way, shape, or form. It's up to the player. And then after that player is done, the next player goes, and after that, the next player goes, and so on and so forth, until all the people have done and did their thing. And whatever card is left, let's just say that die was left, not card, I'm sorry, whatever die is left, you look at the bottom and you look at the how many dots there are. There'll be 1, 2, or 3. If there's 1 like this, we move the track ahead 1, and we go again. If it was 3, we move ahead 3. If it was 2, we move ahead 2. And so you can see, like, the last person might only have 2 dice to choose from, but they have the unique ability to actually decide how quickly the game is going to move forward. So you process your turn, you move your points up and down, you summon your cards and put them in front of you, you do whatever it is that you're going to do your turn. After everybody's done, you move this, and then you skip ahead, so the first player doesn't get to be first player again. You skip ahead 1 player. That person, you check and see, so like we moved ahead 1, the next person would take the dice. There's 4 people, we shake them up, we take one out at random. Oh no, I'm sorry, there's 4 people, so we use all 5 dice. My mistake. Very loud. They take the dice, that person then rolls, they look at those dice, they say, well, I want another, I want this one because it's 2 more, and I get a summoning thing, and then they take the dice and they say, here you go, you can pick, and they go around the table and you do it all over again. That's how you play Seasons. Like I said, there isn't a lot to it. After you know the game, it's pretty snappy, but the game really shows its depth and its character once you see how all these cards, this giant deck of cards, and there's multiples of cards in here. So I mean, there's only like 50 different types of cards, but there are multiples of each card. So you have all these different cards that'll work together and they'll act differently depending on other cards that are out. And once you know the mechanics of the game, the depth of the game really shows itself to you, and you really start having fun. But let me tell you what I really think about Seasons. Okay, the game really isn't that tough to learn how to play. When I first played it, Joel was kind enough to teach me how to play the game after we both purchased it on the very first day of Gen Con. And he had played it online several times, and he gushed and gushed and gushed about it. And if you don't know who Joel is Joel Edie, Joel Eddy. He is Ecomouse on Board Game Geek, and he does the drive-through reviews over at 2d6.org. And if you haven't checked out his reviews, I strongly suggest that you do. But regardless, Joel's a good friend of mine, and he taught me how to play, and he's like, let's play the intro version of the game. And I was like, yeah, screw that. I know how to play Euros, and we were playing with two other guys, Kevin, the boss of 2d6.org, and Andrew, who is the new miniatures commentator and reviewer for 2d6.org. And I was like, we've all played games like this before, let's just dive in and play the advanced version. And we got it perfectly fine. Now, if you're somebody who didn't really first ever game of a Euro type that you play this, maybe you will have to play the intro game, but we did the whole deck of cards, we did the card drafting, and we all had a blast, and we really liked the game. So I didn't have the feeling that I was like, there was any kind of detraction, if you will, from playing it. So, I mean, I was ready to go, and I really, really, really liked the game. I'm not a huge Euro guy. I do like Euros. I like a wide variety of games, and if you watch my reviews, you do know that. But but it takes a lot lately for a Euro to come out and grab me. I mean, I like a game with a nice juicy theme to it. I like games that tell me a story when I play. I like games that when I'm playing them with my friends, we kind of act out what's going on, and that guy's doing this and that guy's doing that, so like that. Does that make me an Ameritrasher or a thematic reviewer? No, I don't think so, because there are lots of Euros out there. I mean, that have a nice solid theme to them, and Seasons really doesn't. I guess theoretically it's about each person's a wizard, and you're summoning artifacts and familiars, and you're trying to gather the most magic crystals. And you could throw in any theme you wanted onto that if you want. Everybody could be a ninja, and you're trying to collect weapons and elemental spirits, and you're trying to collect as many Asian ruins or something. Things like that. You could have made this game about anything. But regardless, I like the art, I like the components, I like what the game does for me. It makes me think, it makes me plot my turn while I'm waiting, and there's enough going on when it isn't your turn that usually you're able to do your thing. You're able to be thinking about as the other person's picking their die, you're able to think about which die am I going to take, and if that guy takes that die, which guy will I take, and which one, and then you're kind of plotting out what you're going to do with that. And then the whole process of the cards that you're setting aside for later rounds, you've got that going for you. So I was like, okay, am I going to have the right cards that are going to make that work? If you're the person that takes the last die, it's like, do I want, if you have the choice between if it's a die that's going to propel the game forward faster or slower, things like that. There's enough going on that you constantly have to think. This isn't a game where, at least a lot, where you can just sit there and go, is it my turn yet? And then you do your turn. Now, sometimes when people start chaining together, especially towards endgame, when people start chaining together 6 or 7 different cards, it can get a little tedious, I will fully admit. And this is a game that analysis paralysis does raise its ugly head from time to time, because for example, just throwing a game out there, To Court the King, a game with dice and stuff like that, where towards the end game you have several different cards that interact with one another, and you roll your dice, and then you sit there for about a good 5 minutes figuring out how each card is going to interact with the other to chain together a period of events that is going to allow you to score points. Same deal here. Occasionally you'll have a tableau of a dozen cards, and they each interact with each other in a certain way, and you play another card down that interacts with those cards, and so when it gets to your turn, you're kind of plotting it out each way through your head, or maybe laying the cards out one by one, and the other players are watching you do this, and they're kind of like, come on, so, that does a little bit of a problem. I think this game, I when I first played it, I thought, wow, this is going to be like a lot of people's game of the year. And I think it's an excellent game, and I'm really glad I own it, and I'm glad I can play it anytime I want. I mean, well, technically, you can play it anytime you want right now because it's online, but I'm glad I have the physical game that I can play anytime I want because it's really highly enjoyable. However, I can see a lot of people just saying, it's okay, and or just meh, nothing special, due to the fact that there's a lot of things about the game that I can see people having a problem with. It is a game that takes a lot of different mechanics and it shoves them together, and it makes kind of a mishmash. I mean, you have card drafting, you have rolling of dice, you have collecting of resources, you have card management, you have hand management, and so on and so forth. And so there's all these different things going on at the same time, and that can, a lot of people don't like that. They don't like having an amalgamation of all those different mechanics. I can see people not liking it just because of the randomness. I mean, as far as like I said, the dice. People there's a lot of people that don't like dice in games, even though I don't think the randomness is too great in this. One of the things about it is that somebody was like, well, I like the cards, and they said, I like it a lot better than other games where you get cards and you get that hand of cards right away, and without the drafting, you have to draft, because it's just because that allows you to actually adjust your hand that you have. If you're just dealt 9 cards and those are the 9 cards you get, you can draw some later if you get lucky with the dice, but I'd like to be able to be, mismatch and to be able to collect and kind of find groupings of cards that'll work well with each other. Back when I was still playing Agricola and I hadn't gotten bored of it, we went to a card drafting variant, because of the fact that we always just kind of didn't like the fact that somebody could get lucky and get a nice hand of cards at the beginning of the game that really worked well together, and if you didn't get a hand of cards that worked well, you were kind of behind the 8 ball. And so we went to a card drafting variant, and this one, it's just part of the game, and I really, really like that. Like I said, I like the whole process. I like the fact that it makes me think. I like the fact that I get that fuzzy brain moment more than a few times when I'm trying to figure out. And there's nothing so pleasing as figuring out a way to use 2 or 3 cards together, cash in a ton of your mana points and gain 60 points in a turn, and you're watching yourself jump from last place to first, all in one big fell swoop. Another thing I really like, and I'll stop yammering. Another thing I really like about the fact is that the crystals are the points in the game, but there's a lot of things that you do where you're spending your victory points to invest in a return later, and I always like that. I like that in games where static increases of points, okay, fine, they work well in some games, but I do it's like money, it's like you're investing it and you're hoping later on that you're able to work out a way to get a return on said investment. I appreciate that in the game, and it has a risk reward level that I really enjoy. Another reason why I'm kind of jumping around, but another reason I think people might not like is there is a lot of screwage in the game. There's a lot of cards that make you take cards back into your hand, make you destroy cards in front of you, deliberately just take points from everybody else that's playing the game and add them to your own score. And there's stuff like that where you're just kind of you're towards middle end to the game, you're punching each other, not literally, but you're really taking it to the other players. And I like Euros that have that nice direct conflict. But it's just, but a lot of people don't like that. I mean, they like nice friendly games, and that's cool. I appreciate that. And there's people in my group that really like nice, hey, how's it going? Oh, how are you? Games. And just everybody kind of does their own thing, and you just kind of see who did the best. That's not my type of game. And if that isn't, if your type of game is something like that, you're probably not gonna like this either. I do think that Seasons is going to be on a lot of people's top 10 lists at the end of the year. The way I see it right now is I'm going to have to find a lot of really awesome games for it to be knocked off my top 10 list of the games. It sucks that you can't really get it right now, just because it's just not out yet. If you live near me and we want to come over and play it, I'll be happy to sit down and play the game with you several times, in fact, if you wish. But when it does come out, I highly suggest you buy it. If you have access to the internet, and obviously you do if you're watching me right now, I strongly suggest going online and playing the game as well. It's pretty awesome online. I've played it now with my friends online, and they all really like that too. It's a nice way to wind down at the end of the night. I do disagree. If you watch Joel's review of the game, which is excellent, he says that he thinks that the game sucks with 4 players. I think it's awesome with 4 players because that's when the major league screwage and the punching starts going on, and I think that's where the game shines. He says 2 players, the game's awesome. I think 2 players, well, my wife and I play 2 players and we can have fun. But it's way more fun when you got a bunch of people at the table, everybody's talking, drinking a beer, and just cursing each other as you're just trying as hard as you can to just squeeze every single point you possibly can out of the cards in the hands that you have while trying to keep everybody else down at the same time. So that's where I find the game to be the most enjoyable. But as always, Joel's wrong and I'm right. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this. I really appreciate you taking the time. As always, please check out the rest of my videos. Please check out the rest of the videos at 2d6.org. Until next time, this is Lance, or Undead Viking. Thank you very much for watching me do this thing. You have an awesome day. Bye.